there are a lot of best practices relating to monitoring and logging and what I term visibility. So basically visibility of your product, visibility of your users, and using those tools in a way that maximizes the product's value, and that can be achieved depending on the goals of the product. But I didn't quite know where to put that visibility, because it is kind of inherently a software engineering task, but it was kind of felt like more like we only do it as part of a larger process, as part of a larger procedure. So therefore I kind of shoved it into the governance bit at the bottom. So for example, in that case, you would use your monitoring stack here, and that's what that sort of best practice would surround. So if you're using your Kubernetes stack, then this is all of the the Elastic Stack, the EFK or ELK, and Prometheus and Grafana and things like that. So that would kind of fit into this visibility box at the bottom, and you would use those tools to basically make sure that your software is running, because it pretty much is required, because if it's not there and you're not aware that your product is not running, then you won't have customers for long. In terms of like the software engineering, I've kind of got this big software engineering banner here. There are a lot of fundamental software engineering. Well, it's an entire discipline, it's an entire industry, and there's all sorts of best practices and things surrounding there. So I mean, I won't really go into that. I think cloud engineering is kind of emerging as a slightly different approach to achieving the same goal, and it requires a slightly different tool set. I would still, if I, like one of my employees, I would kind of still expect them to know both. I would expect them to be knowledgeable about software engineering principles in terms of the good old best practices and stuff. But also increasingly, I would expect them to be efficient and productive with cloud-based environments by default. So I think that is becoming more and more required. So insert your favorite cloud vendor here. And then on the top level, we've got the what do we really need to build a single data science product. So I think actually I've got a slightly different slide here, and I kind of started to expand on some of this, where I picked the top layer of this data layer and kind of expanded it a little bit. So on the left-hand side, we've got raw data and models. So what do I mean by that? So in order to build a data science product, we need some raw data. We need some raw materials to start from. And once you've got that raw data, those raw materials, then we need to have a structure or a set of skills to be able to analyze and understand that data in order to solve a problem. And that's the classic data science, like a CRISPR model, where we're doing figuring out what the problem is, analyzing the data, building models, evaluating that, trying to solve the problem, and then deploying it. So you kind of need all those skills just to build a basic data product. And then we've got maybe a little bit on models more specifically. Like we need to figure out what paradigm we're working in before we start. Like, is this a supervised problem? Is this a reinforcement problem? Is this a unsupervised, et cetera, because that really directs the process that you would go through and the ultimate model that you would deploy. And then we've got questions about like model architecture and how do we design it? How do we build it? Is this a simple thing? Is this a complex thing? Is it an ensemble of things? Do we need to split up the problem to make it easier to solve? Things like that. And then we've got kind of training, serving, evaluation, those kind of things. I would suggest that you need all of these things in place to release a single product. If you didn't have any of these, then you wouldn't have a product. And I would also suggest that you need everything underneath this. to be able to do that. You need some software, you need some infrastructure to be able to host that, and you also need, you know, the backing of a team and a company to be able to actually build that in the first place.